The COVID-19 pandemic has forced international travel to effectively cease globally. This has caused many financial issues for numerous nations across the globe that rely heavily on international travellers to their country. The true financial impact of this is seen through the statistic reported by the United Nations World Tourism Organization that the global tourism industry in 2020 took a reported hit of 0.9 to 1.2 trillion US dollars due to the pandemic. That is billions of dollars many individual countries in the world would rely upon to sustain other parts of their economy. Many countries rely on their tourism industry to remain financially sustainable. For example, in Indonesia, there was an 85% drop in international travellers to Bali since the pandemic began. That is a substantial amount of money that Indonesia would be losing purely because no tourists are travelling to their country at the moment. The people of Indonesia have felt the impact too, as the pandemic has also led to 75,000 workers in Denpasar, the capital of Bali, to lose their jobs as they worked in the tourism industry. For many third world countries such as Indonesia, Vietnam, Thailand, and many more, there is a necessity for the money from spending tourists from first world countries such as Australia, Britain, New Zealand, America, for them to remain sustainable. Although, not all hope is lost yet for these two countries and the global tourism industry. With over 1.48 billion COVID-19 vaccines being administered in the world, the possibility of travel is seemingly not as far away as it once believed to have been. Travellers may soon be able to fly all over the globe as they once did before the pandemic. For instance, countries such as Australia and New Zealand are opening up to one another again. This is to allow travellers, and especially tourists, to be able to come to their country and rebuild the once thriving tourism industries that the country has once financially relied upon to provide spending at, say, restaurants, airports, stores, tourism locations, landmarks. This has been all opened up again to get spending in those locations again. However, this must be done carefully and abiding by any regulations to stop the spread of the virus. The recording of vaccines needs to be done properly and carefully so that when entering a country, they know that what you have taken and when. It should also be done on one universal system that is globally used so that people from all over the world know where to put and find such information without confusion. This system should also provide information to potential travellers of which vaccines are approved or necessary to enter particular countries. So, for instance, like if Australia so you could get a vaccine in Australia that was approved, but if you were to enter countries, say Brazil, you may need a vaccine that you've already been taken in Australia, but you may need to take another one to be able to enter that country. You'll find that information on this application. A solution to attempt to rebuild the global tourism industry safely and avoid extending the pandemic is an international COVID-19 vaccine information database application for smartphones and computers. The main purpose of this application is to allow the world to travel again through one universal global system to support them. The application is designed so that people can input their vaccine information, such as what specific one they received, such as the Pfizer vaccine, what date did they receive it, or them, because you may have to receive two, and from what location, and including also, and be signed off by which person you received it from, or which nurse, doctor. They will also provide that when uploading this information too, they will need to provide medically approved documents to prove the vaccines that they received, so that no forgery or anything else like that can be done. These documents will be approved by medical people behind the scenes of the application. There is already talk from Scott Morrison about vaccination passports for Australians to be able to enter interstate. However, this will create issues globally once we start to be able to travel internationally again, because some countries may use a different vaccine system, and others might use a vaccine passport, such as Australia, or others may use vaccination certificates, such as this one, that have been traditionally used as a pass. By using one global universal system, it avoids the headache of having this for people when travelling across the globe. Australia is the perfect country to roll out this application, and even New Zealand too. This is because we have pretty much got our COVID-19 pandemics under control and have consistently been able to travel interstate within our countries and starting to travel between one another's countries over the past couple of months, so that it can be rolled out, used, and seen and trialled whether or not this application will actually work and if people respond to it. So why take on this opportunity to invest in this application? There are potentially millions of people across the globe that could use this application so they can begin to safely travel internationally again. Literally every person in the world that travels is a potential consumer of this application. In 2018, it was recorded that there was over 1.3 billion international travellers. This is an inflated statistic though for the current times because of the expense of international travel once it will open again. But still, 1.3 billion, that is over 1/7 of the world's population that could be potentially using this application every year in the future. We'll be targeting the initial users for this application will be targeting people from first world countries such as Australia, England, New Zealand, and the US, as many of us have access to smartphones and the capability to download and access this information. So there will be a lot that will be required for this application. There will be a lot of research and development necessary. This means that we need to recruit highly skilled software developers for the actual location and to build the database itself all over the globe. This system needs to be able to handle hundreds of thousands of users at any given moment, similar to that of social media platforms as Facebook or Instagram. This is so that when people are at an airport and they're showing their vaccine information on the application to be able to enter through a country through customs, as it will probably be in the future, that it doesn't break down in that moment and cause headaches and then force people to be abandoned at airports in foreign countries across the world. The application will also require approval and backing from the United Nations World Tourism Organization. This organisation is funded by the United Nations to promote responsible, sustainable and universally accessible tourism. This is exactly what this application is intended to achieve. It is intended to achieve for people to be able to travel again internationally whilst also being responsible so that we don't continue the spread of the pandemic or extend its duration as we're already over it. With the backing from the United Nations organization, hopefully the 193 governments that are members of the United Nations approve the application for use within their countries. This will show global exposure so that it can be that one universal app. It could even be the United Nations vaccine application app. Global marketing and communication will also be necessary for the application of this purpose, though this does not have to be done traditionally through TV adverts or anything like that. It will probably have to be advertised through leaders of the countries, such as Scott Morrison in Australia, Joe Biden in the US, Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand, to be able to discuss and promote the use of the product so that people within those countries will safely be able to travel again. The goal for there are many short-term and long-term goals for the application. The goal for the major short-term goal of the application is for it to be trialled within Australia and New Zealand within 6 months. Australia and New Zealand are the perfect two countries to trial this in, as they are relatively have the pandemic under control in their respective countries and are beginning to allow travellers to fly in between one another again. Many of the other short-term objectives will come from within this trial. For instance, within the first 3 months of the trial, we are aiming for 80% consumer satisfaction with the functionality and general use of the application so that people are happy with the way it works. And if not, we'll find out and be able to approve upon that and make adjustments. Another short-term goal is for there to be zero hackings of the system or faults of the application to prove that the software is capable and well protected. The long-term goals are seemingly ambitious but are not unrealistic. If international travel starts again consistently for the years to come, there will be many people that will need to use this app. But for example, by 2025, we want to have over 200 million users of the application. This may seem like an extreme number now, but however, 1.3 billion people travelled in 2018. Imagine it by then. We want also to be approved by 193 governments of the United Nations so that it can be